அன்பு நேயர்களுக்கு அன்பு வணக்கங்கள். இலங்கையில் அதிபர் தேர்தல் நடந்து முடிந்து ஆட்சி மாற்றம் மட்டுமல்ல மிகப்பெரிய அரசியல் மாற்றமும் நடந்திருக்கிறது. தமிழக மீனவர் பிரச்சனை, இலங்கை தமிழர் விவகாரம், இந்திய இலங்கை உறவு, இந்த விவகாரங்களிலெல்லாம் நல்ல மாற்றம் வேண்டும் என்ற எதிர்பார்ப்பும் சேர்ந்தே எழுந்திருக்கிறது. இந்த நிலையில் இந்த ஆட்சி மாற்றத்துக்கான சூத்திரதாரியாக திகழ்ந்த இலங்கையின் புதிய பிரதமர் திரு ரணில் விக்ரமசிங்கே அவர்கள் இந்த நேர்காணலில் நம்மிடையே பங்கேற்கிறார். Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister, for agreeing to talk to us. Let me start asking you about the working of the new national government. There is an SLFP president, UNP prime minister, ministers from parties which have been opposing each other in the elections consecutively. How does this setup actually work?
No, we were all united on some few issues. The restoration of democracy in Sri Lanka, the end of the Rajapaksa regime, the need to remove the executive presidency, and finally the need to have national reconciliation. So we got together. The fact that he was crowding out the democratic space in Sri Lanka meant as one of the smaller parties who had opposed the UNP said, who has opposed the UNP consistently said, look, fish need water, we need space. So he's not giving us the space. Let's all get together, create the democratic system, strengthen it, and then we can go back to the party politics that we knew. So it is like political parties getting together in a national crisis. It's generally a war, invasion, which brings them together. But here it was a major political crisis which decided, will this country continue to be a multi-party democracy, or will it be the Rajapaksa regime? It affected the SLFP itself, because the SLFP was being replaced, the cadre, the members were being replaced by henchmen of the Rajapaksa regime. This is why the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party became the common candidate. Today he is the President of the SLFP.
But can this setup go on even after the parliamentary elections? Can this go beyond the ensuing parliamentary elections?
Yes, we've decided that we will work together at least for 2 years. Then we could assess the situation. Can we stay on or should we separate? I'd like all the parties to get together. As I said in Sinhalese, I want to make the whole parliament a government. One group will be the ministers and the deputy ministers. The rest of them will become oversight committees, like in the European Parliament or the American Congress, exercising powers of oversight over the government. Therefore, the chairman of the oversight committees will also be powerful political figures.
But is it practically feasible to go on for that long?
We can go for 2 years. We can manage with 2 years.
On President Sirisena's visit, he's back after his first state visit to India. Are you happy about the outcome of his visit?
Yes, I'm quite happy. First is being President Sirisena's visit to Delhi, and next month will be Prime Minister Modi's visit to Sri Lanka. It shows that we are re-establishing links, repairing the damage, getting ahead.
That's true. The engagements are happening more often than before. My question is on the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. This has raised a lot of expectations. This is very significant because this is a bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister that happens after 28 long years. If Prime Minister Narendra Modi wishes to visit the north of Sri Lanka, the Tamil province of Sri Lanka, would you facilitate and encourage such a visit?
He is welcome to visit Jaffna. We've invited him for him to visit Jaffna. He is requested to visit Jaffna, and that visit will take place. He has also to decide what are the other places he'd like to visit during his stay in Sri Lanka.
Could it be the upcountry?
Well, he can visit the Kandy, he may visit Kandy, which is the old capital. But I think the focus will mainly be on some of our religious places and the north.
The Prime Minister will also be visiting Kandy, where a substantial number of Indian origin Tamils live.
But I don't know whether he will be, but Kandy, it's possible the Kandy is on the places that he may like to visit, because then he could visit the Temple of the Tooth and pay homage to the tooth relic. But his meetings of the people with the Tamil-speaking people of Sri Lanka will mainly be in and around the Jaffna. Remember, there are enough of the people of Tamils of recent Indian origin in Colombo, so you need not go anywhere else. You can meet them all in Colombo.
The previous regime was not very cozy about the foreign heads of governments visiting the north of Sri Lanka. Rajapaksa regime actually expressed displeasure over British Prime Minister David Cameron visiting north. You have no problem about Iranian Prime Minister?
No, as once we have a visit by a foreign head of government, in addition to Colombo, he must choose where he'd like to visit.
When are you visiting India, Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, I've been visiting India on and off, but I don't think I will come to India till after the parliamentary elections are over.
Where does China factor today stand in the Indo-Sri Lankan relations? The previous regime was perceived largely pro-China.
We keep the Indo-Lanka relations separate from Sri Lanka relations. Both are important for us. With India, there is a historic link, and under the Indo-Lanka agreement, both countries have agreed that they will not take any measures that will harm the security of the country. So in conducting our relations with China or with any other country, we keep this in mind. With this way we are able to handle the Indo-Lanka relationship separately from the Sino-Lanka relationship. What we didn't like was the attempt at this end in Colombo at the time of the Rajapaksa regime to play India off against China, play the India card, China card with India. It may have been the India card with China. That is not a wise policy, because India also helped us. Without the help of India, could not, President Rajapaksa could not have wiped out the LTT. He got that help. He agreed to give concessions even beyond the 13th Amendment, but he didn't do so.
India helped Sri Lanka in the war.
Yes, exactly.
India has been categorically denying that.
Amnesia is, very common among politicians.
There was a perception that the previous regime was largely in tilt towards China. Is the era of pro-China tilt over today?
As I told you, we are no pro-China tilt, we are no pro-India tilt. We are pro-Sri Lanka
the previous government, there was a perception the previous government had a pro-China tilt.
Because they had strained relationship with the West. They relied on China for all their economic assistance. But in our case, while we welcome Chinese investment and assistance, we will also be getting investment assistance from other countries. There won't be a tilt as far as the UMP is concerned, and President Sirisena is concerned, and the other parties in this national government are concerned. So as a result of how they conducted their foreign policy, there is their general feeling that the Rajapaksa regime had tilted towards China.
Your position on the port city projects has now triggered certain doubts.
There are no doubts. I am the first one to raise the port city in Parliament. I asked for the reports. The reports were not tabled, and now we've appointed a committee to go into the port city and to make a report. And depending on the outcome of the report, we will decide what our measures are going to be. But once we get a report, we'll also give a copy of it to the Chinese government and then commence discussions.
You had actually spoken about the scrapping of the project, but now considering the bilateral...
I still think that if the report is adverse, then the project should be scrapped.
You still believe the report is adverse, the port city project should be scrapped?
If the report is adverse, we have to scrap it. But then we want here all parties. And my contention was that reports were not tabled. So table the reports, go through that, hear all parties, and then take a final decision.
While bilateral consultations with regards to the voluntary repatriation of the refugees from India to Sri Lanka has begun between the two countries, the Tamil Nadu government has raised certain doubts. It believes the situation and atmosphere is still not congenial, and your government has not taken, constructive steps. There are certain doubts raised with the Tamil Nadu government. Do you say all is well for the refugees to return to Sri Lanka?
I would say we have an environment where refugees can return to Sri Lanka. If they have doubts and they want a longer time, just give them some more time, and then as situation keeps getting back to normal and improving, the people in Tamil Nadu will say, why don't they go back to Sri Lanka? We don't want to force the issue, but we know as events develop, they will have to return to Sri Lanka.
These criticisms comes at the background that the resettlement of the internally displaced Tamils hasn't happened in entirety.
No, there has been a delay and we are sorting it out. That's why I said talk to the 1,000 acres that they've decided to release now. So which means of the 11,000 acres which the army had in Jaffna Peninsula earlier, with this 1,000, the army has about 5,000, and they're identifying other areas that can be released. As far as the refugees are concerned, some of them may be from these areas or other areas to which they have no access. On the other hand, there are refugees who are from the areas which has already been released, so normal life is going on. But what I say, if they have a fear, let them be there a longer time, and then.
But do you believe the process has to be expedited?
We have to still at the
should it be given enough time
for the
refugees to be?
I think give them some more time. Give them some more time.
Right. Tamil Nadu has played a very significant or a powerful part when it comes to India-Sri Lanka relations. But the complaint is that the governments in Delhi and also in Colombo have not taken this special factor into consideration, which in turn has only complicated the relations between the two countries. Now that there is a regime change, would you take Tamil Nadu's views on board? Would you like to engage with Tamil Nadu while dealing with India?
When I was Prime Minister, I always engaged with Tamil Nadu to keep them informed. Of course, we have to deal with the government in India. But Tamil Nadu, so many of us, we know Chennai, we go there regularly, we have friends there. Some go for shopping, some go for religious purposes. So Tamil Nadu is not an unknown place. I think anyone in Sri Lanka would.
But would you like to engage with Tamil Nadu on matters?
Bilateral relations we have to do with the government of India, but when we go to Tamil Nadu, we keep them informed. We'd like that to continue.
Your manifesto actually says your policy will take the diversity of India into concern. Does it mean Tamil Nadu?
Yes, certainly. The southern part of the subcontinent is closer to each other.
When the Tamil Nadu issue was raised, the attitude of the previous government was that we deal with the governments in Delhi, not in Chennai. Chennai is not our concern. Tamil Nadu is not our concern. This was the attitude of the previous government. Will there now be change in attitude?
We've always said government to government is in Delhi. But we have always had, and my Prime Minister, good relations, especially with the states of southern India. Chennai, Kerala, large number of Sinhalese are supposed to have connections to Kerala, Karnataka, and of course Andhra, which is now in two places.
Telangana and Andhra.
So all that has been traditional parts of relations. Do you know that Narasingha Varman, the king of Pallava, he was able to defeat the Chalukyan king because his commander was a prince from Sri Lanka called Manavamma. And then the king gave his army to Manavamma to return to Sri Lanka and re-establish himself on the throne of Anuradhapura. The Pallava and the Anuradhapura kings had very, very close relations. Pandyans had. And the final lineup was Sri Lanka, Pallava, Pandyans, and Sri Vijaya against Chola. Of course, Chola defeated all of us, but I mean, we've been part of it. And Kerala and Sri Lanka are the only two areas of the Indian subcontinent that uses coconut oil for cooking.
Can I understand that you would prioritize strengthening ties with South India?
We will continue that.
Definitely ask you about the resolution the Northern Provincial Council of Sri Lanka has passed. The allegation is that the successive governments of Sri Lanka have been committing genocide against the Tamils. What is your response?
Very, very irresponsible statement by the Chief Minister. I don't agree with it. Makes it difficult for us to communicate with the Chief Minister when he passes resolutions like this. This will be the same position in India if a Chief Minister passed a resolution accusing Delhi of genocide. I have been dealing with Mr. Sambandhan and the members of the TNA, resolving the issues. Yes, there was war, there were people were killed, but on all sides. Remember, just as much as Tamils got killed, there were Muslims and Sinhalese who were killed.
The magnitude was high on the Tamil side.
Yeah, but there were Muslims who were killed in the east. They were Tamil speakers. They were not Sinhalese.
But the magnitude, sir, the numbers.
Magnitude is high, yes. But remember, some of the Tamils were killed by the LTT. LTT wiped out the political leadership of Jaffna. All the TULF and other members were killed by the LTT. Now, no Tamil politicians were killed by the security forces of Sri Lanka. So the political leadership, many of Jaffna's leadership was killed by the LTT. You ask the people of Jaffna. And anyone who opposed
the UN report, but going by the UN report, the large number of killings were done by the Sri Lankan forces.
No, UN report talks of the last phase of the war, where large number of people were killed. The numbers are in dispute. The UN report says 40,000. Some of the official reports say 5,000. So let's say
the diaspora says it could be closer to 1 lakh or so.
No, I would not say. I don't think even it will come up to 40,000. But let that. I mean, we are willing to verify it. But even in that, I am not in any way saying Sri Lanka had to fight a war, and the LTT used the civilians as a shield. Then what happened there is what we have to inquire into. Was it that they were used as a shield and you couldn't avoid the casualties, or was it that you could avoid some of the casualties and you didn't do so? We are not trying to cover anything up. We've got...
Deny the charge that there has been a genocide against the Tamils.
I would say large number of people of Sri Lanka, including a large number of Tamils, have been killed in this conflict. Some of them were casualties of war. Some were killed for no reason at all. The killings, the deaths have been partly due to the operations of the Sri Lankan army, security forces, partly due to the operations of the IPKF, and partly due to the operations of the LTT. Now we are looking at the last phase of the war and what happened there when the civilians were used as a shield.
You blame the IPKF also?
The people were killed by all these. I mean, their casualties took place under Sri Lankan security forces, IPKF. They were attacked by the LTT and also by the LTT. We are in no way denying that we are not going to say Sri Lanka security forces did not result, actions didn't result in the deaths of the Tamils, and maybe a large number, some in fighting, some in other circumstances, which we are willing to look at. But to say that it was only the government of Sri Lanka, when Mr. Wickremesinghe knows that he would not have been taken from Colombo and made a chief minister if there was a political leadership left in Jaffna by the LTT. And what happened in 2005? In 2005, the people of Jaffna were allowed to vote. What took place in 2009, I could have prevented what took place in 2009. Who put Mahinda Rajapaksa, who made Mahinda Rajapaksa president? Not the people in the south. By preventing 300 to 400,000 Tamils from voting, there was a deal between the LTT and Mahinda Rajapaksa, where Mahinda Rajapaksa paid money to the LTT. One of them who took the money, Emil Kanthan, is still there, somewhere in the Middle East. That's well known.
You accuse Rajapaksa of paying money to LTT.
I mean, that is a fact. Even Rajapaksa hasn't denied it. Prabhakaran took money.
Had you become the president, things would have been otherwise?
Yeah, we would have come towards a resolution, because a lot of the LTT were willing to do a deal, and Prabhakaran wasn't. That's what happened. Finally, he fell out with Balasingham. Why was Balasingham excluded? So Balasingham wanted to, knew that reality was international community wanted a deal, and Prabhakaran thought, no, I can't finish him off physically. I'll finish him off politically. Could finish off Premadasa physically. He failed to finish off President Kumanatunga, who was for peace, who still stands for peace. And he didn't want a peace settlement, because then after 5-6 years, his leadership would have been challenged. And we were all discussing one of the biggest issues that we had in a peace settlement was the threat to Prabhakaran from the people of Jaffna. When we had killed enough of them that someone was going to take revenge. As far as the Sinhalese were concerned, they are Muslims, they had said, okay, this is a part of the war, it's over. But that won't happen. And one of the biggest concerns we've had, and we were discussing even with the other governments, was what is the security of Prabhakaran after in the peace settlement, because he would have been a target of people from the north who wanted to settle scores from him. How many Tamil leaders were killed? I mean, his own Mahathir was put into a cage and shot by him. Why did some of the others break away and come? Because they knew Prabhakaran would kill them. That is, I would say, finally, Prabhakaran's desire for glory was such that he he nearly wiped out the whole Tamil race. The Tamils in Jaffna today, part of they are without leadership.
You blame Prabhakaran for the genocide.
I blame him for having destroyed, decimated the Tamil political leadership.
There are allegations, of course, on both sides.
But we have said, look, we are willing to have an inquiry. We have no problem at all.
Why not an international inquiry, sir?
Because
the allegations on both sides, definitely the
because
allegations.
Sri Lanka, like India, is not a party to the Statute of Rome. And therefore, we can't have domestic, jurisdiction lies with the domestic courts. There was a problem in the domestic courts as to whether the courts of Sri Lanka were independent when the Chief Justice moved out. The Chief Justice is back. We have the same standard as India. India would say the same standard as us. It doesn't mean that we are ceased to be. We are willing to conduct the inquiry, and if they want to have foreign observers, we have no problems with it at all.
Are you and Rajapaksa are on the same page?
I am not on the same page. Rajapaksa not
on the
same
international
page.
Inquiry, he also spoke about the domestic process credible to the international
I
community.
am on the same line with the government of India. On that, as far as jurisdiction in criminal and legal matters are concerned, it lies with India, in Republic of India, and it lies with Sri Lanka, because neither of us has signed the Statute of Rome. I am the one who refused to sign the Statute of Rome. But I am prepared, as we said, to have any amount of trials in Sri Lanka. We have to ensure the judiciary is independent. This is one of the reasons the international community had. If they are going to be, if anyone wants to come in, Human Rights Watch, China, they are completely free to come into Sri Lanka, which are not allowed by Rajapaksa. We are willing to allow anyone to come in, and they can do their own inquiries. If there is a request for inquiry in Sri Lanka, we can talk over with the Human Rights Council. Let's see what their final report is. We are willing to discuss with them. All we are saying is that the jurisdiction for trials lies with the government of Sri Lanka, just as much as in India it lies with India, and in America it lies with the USA. Remember that these are all governments that did not sign the Statute of Rome. So therefore, domestic jurisdiction. But if Human Rights Watch wants to come tomorrow, they are free to come. I will say yes, come in.
You will expedite.
And as far as the UN is concerned, if they make recommendations, certainly we have to consider and talk to them. We have no problems with that. We have invited the new High Commissioner. But each time someone else makes a request that there should be international inquiry, no. When we had these problems in the South in 1989 and 90, they asked for international inquiry, and I said no. The person who asked for international inquiry was a person by the name of Mahinda Rajapaksa.
He was wrong.
No, I said no international inquiry. If the UN Human Rights Commission wanted an inquiry, we are prepared to talk to them. But I invited Human Rights Watch, all the Amnesty, all to come to Sri Lanka. They all came to Sri Lanka. The congressional staff came to Sri Lanka. There is nothing to hide. We know terrible things have taken place from 1983. Maybe over 100,000, more than 100,000 people have been killed. We've had uprisings in the north, in the south. I don't think any country has gone through that. At one stage, I think our jurisdiction was limited to a few cities. We had uprisings in the north and the south at the same time. We just want to put it behind us. And any inquiry that helps us to put that behind us, yes. And the only people who can talk to us about an inquiry is the UN Council on Human Rights. And if they do have some recommendations, certainly we are willing to sit down and talk with them.
That's right. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has recommended an international inquiry. The Office of the High Commissioner wants it.
President Rajapaksa turned it down. But when Mrs. Pillai came to Sri Lanka, I met her and I said, you make your recommendations. If we are in the government, we will consider it. But again, I told that domestic jurisdiction is different. You've got to draw a line between what is domestic jurisdiction and what's inquiry. In the case of an inquiry, it's a body like the UN that can ask you for inquiry, and the government can respond by saying, no, we are not going to have inquiry, or say, yes, we are willing to talk to you on that. As far as if the UN report says so, we are willing to do that.
If the High Commissioner or the UN Human Rights Council insists, you would consider?
We want to have an inquiry, but we want to tell that as far as jurisdiction is concerned, jurisdiction is a matter for Sri Lanka. As far as the inquiry is concerned, I said the UN, it's not me. It's President Rajapaksa who agreed with the Secretary General of the UN that there shall be an inquiry that meets up to international standards. And it's the same resolution which he got member states to move in the UN Human Rights Council. So whatever commitments President Rajapaksa gave in writing to the Secretary General of the UN and the UN Human Rights Council, we will honor. I have no problems about that.
Do you think he has not honored the promise?
He did not allow an inquiry.
The domestic process that Rajapaksa was talking about doesn't seem credible to the international community. You say that you will bring up an inquiry that is credible to the international community.
As far as the domestic inquiry, he has appointed a commission called the Maxwell Paranagama Commission. They've asked for 6 months more, we give them 6 months. When that's over, that report will be made available to the UN Council to decide, to make the decision. They can make whether it's credible or not. I don't want to pass any judgment now. In addition, the Commission has appointed a committee chaired by Sir Desmond De Silva QC, a British Queen's Counsel of Sri Lankan origin, to make recommendations about the procedures, the judicial procedures. So that report will also be made available to them. And we are talking with the South African government in regard to establishing a truth commission. So that will also be made available to the UN Human Rights Commission. So we are doing a lot.
Chief Minister C.V. Vigneswaran largely blames you for your decision to retain the army in the north. He says you're playing obsolete political tactics for electoral reasons. Do you deny the charge?
Army is in all parts of Sri Lanka. I don't see the reason why army should go out of any district in Sri Lanka. There are district headquarters in every part of Sri Lanka. Actually, their structure is now based on the Indian one, not.
But the army-civilian ratio north is appalling.
I know that, but we've said this, as far as we are concerned, we are not putting the security forces out of any place unless we see improvements. But at the same time, there are a lot of land that can be released to the people in different parts of the country. We started with 1,000 acres. Now the TNA said there has been an agreement in court to release another 2,000 acres. I just handed it over to the Attorney General for his comments. It seems to have happened last time. If that is so, then we have to go ahead. They've raised the issue of people in Mana. We will go into it, and Kilinochchi. We said that a lot of land have been utilized for other purposes. In Sampur, we've handled the resettlement of the people in Sampur. Then in Panama, we've resettled that. We have settled the issue. That's for Sinhala farmers whose lands were taken away so that they could build VIP chalets and luxury chalets. There are some houses here which we are returning, high security zone. And we are starting a process. But remember, this cannot be done overnight. So it will take some time. It may be taken.
He blames the slow pace.
I told you I disagree with him. It's irresponsible. And he will have to explain himself to the Tamil-speaking people. A lot of Tamils are today criticizing. I'm dealing here with the TNA members of parliament. If it's a slow space, they need not come. We meet weekly.
This is not the TNA's demand alone. The UN High Commissioner has also been demanding.
UN High Commission wants the lands restored. He didn't. They say immediately. And I've asked him to come. It has to be gradual. We have to work out the relocate. First, we have to be satisfied the security situation, and secondly, then we've got to decide what happens in the rest of the country. But it was not a question. We never said anywhere in the 100-day manifesto, which everyone voted for, about pulling troops out. That was a security decision. We said of restoring the lands to the people in all parts of Sri Lanka.
But what stops you from doing that?
No, but there's nothing to prevent us. All the land that is not required will be done.
But the ratio, the army-civilian ratio, is not proportionate to the other parts of the country.
Army-civilian ratio will get adjusted as time goes on. No one has said it's going to be that high all the time. Isn't Vigneswaran playing politics for this thing? It's an utterly irresponsible statement, our Chief Minister.
He has a line or two in his speech in praise of the President. Why do you think he blames you?
No, he never even spoke to me on anything. It is just, today you ask him again to repeat it.
But
And I am going to Jaffna.
in his speech, he said, you had told him that you are going to tell the Buddhist monks that you are not going to demilitarize the north.
I never told him anything. Wickremesinghe never dealt with me. He has never dealt with me. Wickremesinghe has never spoken to me except for once.
Details.
He has
you smiled and said.
He came only once when I was in the opposition. I have not dealt with him. I have no dealings with Wickremesinghe.
He said.
He is a liar.
There was no meeting between you
I
and
have
Wickremesinghe.
Wickremesinghe sent me a letter. And
the content of his speech was.
I have not spoken to Wickremesinghe. I don't discuss Jaffna with Wickremesinghe. I discuss it with the Tamils, the TNA in Parliament.
You did not smile?
If he says, if I would have smiled at him, he is the man who went and grabbed Rajapaksa here. He was willing to do a deal with Rajapaksa. I have not dealt with him. I have never had any dealings with him.
As Chief Minister, has to deal with the President.
No, but he has never come even otherwise as Chief Minister. He never dealt with me as the opposition. Wickremesinghe has had no dealings. If he said so, he is a damn liar. Next time I go to Jaffna, I am not meeting him. I am going in the March. I will not meet him. Unless he withdraws that, I will not meet him.
You had not told them that you had told the Mahatheros that
no, I have not
there
told.
will be no deal.
If I spoke to them, what I spoke with I have not spoken to all the Mahanayakas to begin with. My discussions on Jaffna has only been with two Mahanayakas, Malvatta and the present Mahanayaka Ramanya. And the Ramanya Mahanayaka is also the chair of the Council on Religions. He was talking about the need to release land and how we can do it while looking after security. The Mahanayaka of Malvatta said, certainly the land should be returned, but we should not put security at peril. That's all they have said. I never spoke to him. He came to me once only. And I have no dealings with him.
Your refusal to deal with him, will this not complicate matters?
It won't complicate matters for me. It complicate matters for him.
Not the people?
No, I deal with the people. I deal with the members of Parliament.
He is the representative of the
He
Northern
doesn't represent. He does. No, he is in a provincial council. I deal with members of Parliament just as much as I deal with the members of Parliament in Kandy about Kandy. I don't deal with the Chief Minister.
Not the provincial government.
If the provincial government wants to deal with me, yes. I have a Chief Minister. We have a Chief Minister in Badul. I don't deal with him. In this, it's a conscious decision not to deal with Wickremesinghe.
Because of his remarks.
Because of his remarks, and he lied. I can say that because I can deal directly with the people of Jaffna. I have no problem. I don't need Wickremesinghe to go there.
On the autonomy issue, on the full implementation of the 13th Amendment, how do you propose to go about it further?
We will be implementing it. We are looking at how it's going to function in regard to the independent commissions, and a concern which has been raised by a lot of people about the politicization of the police, and whether the independent police commission is sufficient to depoliticize the police, and whether we should take other steps to depoliticize the police. The fear is that the police will become private armies with the chief ministers. We haven't got the precedent of India, and the politicization of police at the center by President Rajapaksa, and has given fear that
it works quite well in countries like India.
It has worked well in India. I said we haven't the precedence of India. It hasn't worked here.
In so many other countries,
it hasn't worked here. We had it earlier when we did the 13th Amendment. We haven't got it now. Fortunately, we had an Inspector General of Police who said, look, I will carry out what is expected of me under the law for the elections. As a result, he brought a former Inspector General of Police and made him Secretary to the Minister of Public Order, who tried to overrule this. In different these things of the police, we have found politicization, and the country is agreed there should be no politicization. Sinhalese, Muslims, Tamils. So how we achieve that is a matter that the whole Parliament has to discuss. Because there is a fear that if there is politicization of the police, that it will lead to the central government having won, maybe the Prime Minister after the amendment, Chief Ministers having, so there will be 10 police forces. We brought in the independent police service when commission in 2001 when the police was not politicized in this way. Now we have to really look at where parties have to talk to each other to ensure that there are more steps to depoliticize the whole police force, and what is the relationship between the head of government and the police and the chief ministers and the police. That the present statute is not sufficient.
The other concern is on the merger. Would you consider the merger of the North and the East?
The Constitution of Sri Lanka provides for 9 provinces, and that any merger requires a referenda in both those provinces.
But it is a part, it's an integral part of the accord.
It's not a part of the accord. It only acknowledges the merger for 1 year, temporary merger for 1 year.
So merger is something you
and in 2005, Rajapaksa said, I will not have a merger, and Prabhakaran supported him.
That's a conspiracy theory, right?
Whatever it is, he did that, and he prevented the Tamils from voting. If you want a merger of any 2 provinces or more, the 13th Amendment provides the way. So you can have a merger. That is, the provincial councils of each of the provinces must vote in favor of a merger and must be supported by a majority of the people in that province.
You talk about the full implementation of the 13th Amendment without the merger, without the police powers.
No one said merger is not a part of the 13th Amendment as the way you said. No one said Northern is going to be one province. It was a temporary merger for 1 year under the Indo-Lanka Accord. And any merger thereafter would have to be by a referendum. President Jayawardena said, I am going to hold a referendum and I will campaign against it. The day he was with Prime Minister Gandhi, he said. So let's not distort.
Are you for a referendum now?
If the 2 provincial councils want a referendum, then we'll have to hold a referendum.
You're okay?
If the 2 provincial councils, not only those 2 provinces, if 2 provinces anywhere else wants to merge and they pass it, then we have to hold it. If
there is a resolution passed by the North and the Eastern Provincial Council in demand of a referendum, then the central government is okay?
No, then the central government must hold a referendum. If the Western Province and the Northwestern Province wants to merge, similarly we have to hold a referendum.
Right.
But you can't do it by, you can't pass a constitution amendment that, and there are Supreme Court judgments. So if they have the majority, let them get the majority and do that. One issue. Second, I didn't say no police powers. I said the relationship for the head of the government to the police and the chief minister to the police have to be reconsidered in the light of the need to depoliticize the police. I didn't say it's only the chief minister. I said the head of government also.
The fishermen issue, this is a long-standing issue between India and Sri Lanka. How do you propose to resolve this issue?
It's an issue between the Tamil Nadu fishermen and the Sri Lankan fishermen. So they've got to sit down and we have to work this out. But there can be no bottom trawling. There can be no solution which permits the Indian fishermen to do bottom trawling. This is basically Sri Lanka waters. And what would we have done if all our fishermen went into the Indian waters and started fishing there? Now what you are claiming is we want to come there, we want to fish in your waters and we want to bottom trawl in your waters.
They say it's the traditional fishing.
You didn't have bottom trawling, okay, we are prepared to consider the type of boats that were used in 1963 when the Kachchatiu issue was resolved. At that time, you use the boats that were at that time, we will do that.
Our fishermen communities are on record saying they are ready to give up bottom trawling.
You tell them to give up bottom trawling. And look, between you and me, these are all relations. They've intermarried there. They are various, so they have to sit down and sort it out. And as far as the northern fishermen are concerned of Sri Lanka, it has to be, it's their track grounds. That if you have the type of boats that were used when Kachchatiu was handed over, and if you are using the same number of boats that were there in the time of the Kachchatiu agreement, we are willing to talk on that.
You are ready to allow them the traditional fishing rights?
No, we are willing to talk on that about allowing the tradition. If it's restricted to the type of boats that were used in the time the Kachchatiu Accord was done, and the number of boats is equal to the number of boats that were there during the Kachchatiu Accord.
The Kachchatiu issue. Tamil Nadu largely believes the retrieval of the Kachchatiu is the only solution for this issue.
Kachchatiu has the part of Sri Lanka. Delhi thinks it's a part of Sri Lanka. It's a part of Tamil Nadu politics. I know all of them. But it's the issue of fishing. This is what we say. These are traditional waters, and the people who fished in it are the fishermen in the north. Even the fishermen in the south are the same. They find some of the Indian trawlers were coming into the southern areas also, near Putlam, so it's a big issue for us. And this is the only player, and this is the livelihood. We prevented these fishermen from fishing earlier because of the war, and otherwise they would have been fishing now, they would not have allowed. At one stage, the LTT armed some of the fishermen to go and shoot the fishermen coming from India. We are not doing that, but you have to sit down.
There are allegations of the Sri Lankan Navy shooting fishermen.
Sri Lanka,
Around 600 Indian fishermen have been killed in the last many years.
No, not recently. I think even
Until 2011. The last was in 2011.
2011, yeah. But part of that earlier was during the time of the war, and they felt some of them were actually involved in supplying the arms. But remember this, that as far as we are concerned, and even today the northern fishermen are shouting, why isn't the Navy defending us? There were fishermen who had written letters, so why aren't you use the Navy to shoot them? It's from the fishermen of the north. And we have a job explaining to them, look, these are territorial waters, but we still have to go and talk to India and sort it out. They know, we know.
Maybe there are such requests. Do you deny the allegation that the Sri Lankan Navy has carried human rights violation against the Indian fishermen?
Sri Lankan Navy had to patrol it. And at some stages, there was shooting of fishermen. At the height, when we asked fishermen to stop to prevent the flow of arms between India and Sri Lanka.
But is that justified? Shooting fishermen of the neighboring country, a friendly neighbor?
It's not a question of that. At that time, LT was running arms. So whether it's Sri Lankan fishermen or Indian fishermen, they had to stop when the Navy asked them to stop. There also has been instances of the Sri Lankan Navy shooting innocent fishermen. We have not said no to it.
So that has happened.
Yeah, but there has been the fact that they have been running arms, and some instance they have to shoot because they were poaching on Sri Lankan waters.
Poaching waters, can this be punished with shooting? Human rights
Look,
violation?
we have no Coast Guard. We only recently established a Coast Guard. But you remember, you asked me the first thing. You are trying to put the IMF. Why are you coming into our waters? Why are you fishing in our waters? Stay on the Indian side. Then there will be no issue. No one will shoot anyone else. You stay on the Indian side and let our fishermen stay on the Sri Lankan side. We are quite. Otherwise, don't make accusations about human rights violation by the Navy. You came in there. A lot of friendly neighbors
have such fishing agreements, right, sir?
No, we have it. So you be on that side, we be on this side.
We are friendly.
Why do you go and pick up those Italian sailors? Yeah. What's the incident? You say you are friendly with Italy, so they show the same magnanimity to Italy that you want us to show to them.
They killed our fishermen, so
but
they still follow the course of law.
Look, if you want us to show that magnanimity to your fishermen, kindly show that. Say India should show that magnanimity to the
attack was on the Indian side.
Look, you are taking away. We are taking away a livelihood of our northern fishermen.
But that can't justify taking lives, no, sir.
Look, you can't come. It's a right of this. Someone tries to break into my house, I can shoot. If he gets killed, the law allows me to do that. Look, on the fisherman's one, as far as I am concerned, I have a very, very strong line. This is our water, and the fishermen of Jaffna should be allowed to fish. And I mean, we stopped them from fishing. That's why the Indian fishermen came in. They must be allowed, and they are willing to have a deal. Let's have a reasonable deal, but not at the expense of the income of the northern fishermen, no.
There were proposals of fishermen fishing on both sides without having any territorial
you all have no fish, it's not worth fishing there. The fish are here.
On retrieval of Kachativu, if India raises this issue, would you at least consider ceding the island, or if not, leasing the island?
Look, we are not ceding, we are not leasing, and India is not raising it. So let's be quite firm about that. India is not going to raise it. These are hypothetical issues.
We're talking a lot about the political relations. India and Sri Lanka share a very strong cultural ties. Now that things are getting normalized, how do you propose to strengthen the cultural ties between the two countries in terms of literature, arts?
It's a people-to-people relationship. Let it flow and it will happen. I mean, there was no government involved in strengthening the relationship for so long. The Brahmi script, the Sinhala script, the Tamil script, all had no governments involved. It will take place.
If the governments facilitate, it can go faster.
Yes, sir. That's true. I mean, Emperor Asoka facilitated Mahinda coming to Sri Lanka. So we can facilitate, but I think that's a normal process, and it will keep growing.
What to expect of the Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka?
It's a goodwill one to restoring the ties between the two countries. That's why both have come within a month of each other.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.